Hi, everybody, and welcome to, let me do that again. Hi, everybody, and welcome to DeProgram's premium content interview. I'm John Kiriakou here with my friend and co-host, Ted Rall. We're gonna learn a little bit about Ted's background. And, there's a lot, Ted, that I don't know about your background. I mean, of course, I know what you do now. I know that you went to Columbia, but let's start at the beginning and tell us about Dayton, Ohio, growing up in Dayton and those early years.
Sure. So, I was born in Massachusetts, but
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, but I only spent 6 months. 6 months there, so it's weird. I have a draw there. I always feel a pull to Massachusetts, but I've never lived there. Beyond being a little baby. My father was in the Air Force. He was a highly decorated civilian. He was originally in the military, but he moved over to the civilian branch. He was an aeronautical engineer, and he pissed off a general. And as you know, in the government, when you piss someone off, they don't fire you. They promote you far away to get you out of their hair. So he was based at a base near Boston. They transferred him to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in north of Dayton, Ohio, in Vandalia. My mother was French. She was born in France, and she met my dad in Paris. She was a secretary at NATO headquarters when it was in Paris in the early 1960s. He was on business at NATO. He's like, who's the hottie? His friend offered to fix him up. So he brought her kind of like a belated war bride, kind of, to the United States. At the time, he was a Sloan Fellow at MIT, and then he was at the Air Force, and he got shipped off to Dayton. Obviously, my mom went along. I grew up there. I was born in 1963, and basically my earliest memories are learning how to read. My parents got separated when I was very young, and it was a very formative experience for me. I don't remember my dad ever living at home. He left when I was 20 months old, so I grew up with my mom alone. I saw my dad alternating Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 7 p.m. for court-ordered visitations. And it was definitely kind of a distant relationship, to say the least. Both of my parents believed in corporal punishment in a big way, and especially my dad during visits. And that was toxic because, he didn't have I didn't live with him. So it's kind of like, who's this guy hitting me? So basically, by the time I was like 5, it was 1968. My mom is raising me alone, and she taught me English kind of from reading the newspaper. And I think that was a huge political influence for me. I mean, if you think about the news events from that period, it was very intense. My first language was actually French, though. My mom sent me to the Lollipop House in Kettering, Ohio, where I grew up, to learn for pre-K and kindergarten. And they said, this kid doesn't speak English. What's going on? They called her up, and she's like, that's your job. You should teach him. So they were like, well, they kind of tried, but it didn't really take. And growing up, it was basically a development. All the houses looked exactly the same. It was a mid 1950s typical suburban kind of situation. We grew up pretty poor. I remember my dad paid child support, and even though it was the 70s, it was still like $15 a week or something. So it really wasn't much money. And there were times when we didn't have to eat. My mom would sometimes not eat so that I could eat, but I didn't really eat enough. Basically, it was a very it was a rough upbringing. A lot of poverty. Didn't eat clothes from the thrift store. Couldn't always like, there's not money for this, there's not money for that. School trip, sorry, don't have money for that. Meanwhile, my dad lived quite well. He had a bachelor pad with beautiful modern art in it, in a building with a pool. Then he got remarried, and that's when my relationship with him, such as it was, really just went to hell. I was like 10 years old And at that point, I got the general impression that my dad had decided to rededicate his life to his second family. And I didn't, I didn't see that much of him after that. I mean, there was still court-ordered visitations, but I was very resentful of the way he and his second family lived compared to the way we lived. My mom and I lived.
Did they stay in the area?
Yeah, they were. They lived in Centerville, which is one town over.
Sure.
And so it was close by. I mean, things aren't always as they seem, and I've since subsequently learned that actually life wasn't that great for the stepkids either. But I didn't know that at all. But it created a class consciousness in me, because at a very early age I kind of realized, like, if not my parents hadn't gotten divorced, I would have been raised in a pretty well-off family. But instead, just because of this event that I had nothing to do with, my parents got divorced, and so because of that, I grew up poor, and that got me thinking about all sorts of people who were in a similar situation. Black people, women, gay people, whatever, and it really just sort of reinforced that there's no meritocracy, and that, like, basically life is really arbitrary and random. And I think that's really informed me. So it's basically my mother and I growing up, just the two of us. Subsequently, years later, she read an article about Asperger's syndrome, and she became convinced. She self-diagnosed herself in her 50s or 60s as, like, having had Asperger's. And she's like, that's me. Her sister used to say that she was étourdi, which is French for fucked up. And and she was brilliant. Absolutely one of the things I miss about her so much, the way her mind was like a steel trap. And it really influenced me. I mean, to give you an idea, John, I mean, when I was 10, we went to France together. We went to Mugron in southern France in the Pyrenees Mountains, where she had grown up. She left there when she was 4 at the beginning of World War II. She grew up in a house, and she was like, I want to find the house where I lived there when I was 4. This is years, decades later. She was 4. She said, I remember there was a pear tree. Remember there was a garden. The pear tree had its roots halfway in the water. There was a fast-moving river right behind it. And I remember exactly what the house looked like. And I'm thinking, wow. So, Mugron was a pretty decent-sized town. I'm driving the rental car. We're driving around. I'm thinking, okay, this is a fool's errand. My mom and I driving around. She's like, turn here. She's like, that's it, right there. And so I'm like thinking, no. So we knock on the door. My mom explains, I think I grew up here. Do you mind if we take a look? And, it's a French country house, so nothing has been renovated since like the 1890s. Okay, it's like the old double sink, the old, out of date wallpaper, and a beautiful, amazing house. And she's like, the kitchen's to the right, which is very strange, but it's right out when you walk in. And sure enough, there it is. And she's like, this room. We walk to the back. We go. There's the garden. There's the pear tree, just the way she described it, right? So it was a very kind of isolating existence. In my early childhood, especially because my mom decided to go to school to go back to get her college degree. She had a college degree from France, but they don't count here. So she wanted to be a teacher, so she had to start from scratch. She went to Wright State University. She would be there until like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I'd be alone after school, fending for myself, like OG latchkey kid.
Right.
There were not a lot of kids in the neighborhood, so there weren't. I didn't really know anyone, so I was alone a lot. I was also a really sick kid. I was hospitalized repeatedly with lung problems. I had ear operations, eye operations. So I was constantly like bedridden. And it was like, I guess it was around that time that because I was always home, I noticed political cartoons in the local newspaper. I used to read the paper. I learned how to read from the paper. And the local cartoonist was Mike Peters of the Dayton Daily News. And he was at the top of his game in the Nixon and Ford years. And his cartoons were just absolutely kick-ass. And even now, most political cartoonists would say, like, oh my God, Mike Peters was a god then. And so I was like, that's what I wanted to do. So I got interested in drawing cartoons then, really.
How old were you at the time? What are we talking about?
9, 10, 11, 12.
Oh, early. Okay.
Early. Yeah.
So yeah, you knew early what you wanted to do.
And I told my mom, and she went in full hog, took me to the art supply store, loaded me up on paper and pens. Even though it was kind of, art supplies are the only people who make money in the arts are art supply stores. So it's, it was expensive, but it was, I was really living in my own world. I was like, by the time I was 13 or 14 years old, I literally established the same exact routine that I have today. I started drawing about 3 cartoons a week. They just dropped them into a file. And they were 7.5 by 10, just like they are now. And it's kind of like, it hasn't really, with some interruptions, it hasn't really changed much since then. I was an only child, no brothers, no siblings.
And your mom didn't remarry?
She dated a little bit, but she never remarried. The closest she came was she dated a police detective, I should say, who was brilliant. And but he was Black. And she was really worried about what the neighbors would think back in the 70s. And I remember I loved him, Patrolman Walton, that was I called him. And he was great. And I was like, you should marry him. It's like, fuck, you don't even know that the neighbors would care. That's just like in your head.
Yeah.
You're not like, you know what I mean? Like you don't have any proof of that. And then even if they did care, like they're not keeping you warm at night. What do you care? But yeah, she dated very little. And I think, she was a very attractive woman. She was thin. She was like a size 2, like, French, gorgeous woman. So she got a lot of attention from guys, but she was also trouble. And I think she was too smart and too sassy and too feminist for most of the guys in Dayton. I remember her, she was kind of like, she was very radical. She was very far left. And I remember like when women started wearing jeans, Levi's didn't make jeans for women.
For women.
So she had to go buy the men's jeans. I remember her in her white hip huggers looking cool as shit, like with the big thick belts and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was a good relationship, albeit probably dysfunctional and too clingy, until I was when she got out of school. She graduated from school from college when I was about 12, so I guess 7th grade. And she fell in with these like right-wing. She got hired in Centerville, where my dad lived, which was a right-wing, all Republican district. And all her colleagues, the teachers, they were fucking insane, like assertive discipline, like types, like, kids are trouble. They need a firm hand. You have to beat them regularly or they don't. So my mom like was very impressionable. And I think it came from like surviving. She had growing up during the Nazi occupation. And she had been always a survivor and scrappy. And I think she kind of like learned to sort of basically go along and be whoever other people wanted her to be. And I think that's why she never remarried, because she didn't want to fall into that more than she already had. She wanted to maintain her sense of self. But anyway, she fell in with these teachers. And, I was 12. I was, snotty and rebellious. And my mom started like, really abusing me physically.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big defining part of my teenage years. And meanwhile, I was in junior high school, Dwight L. Barnes Junior High School in Kettering. And I started getting bullied like crazy.
Really?
So there was this one kid. I even wrote a book about him called My War with Brian, but his name was really Bob. Bob Hack was his real name. And he would just basically pursue me and torment me and torture me every single day. Like, he'd chase me down the hall. The janitor felt sorry for me and gave me the key to the elevator so I wouldn't be caught in the stairs where Bob would try to throw me down the stairs. It got really, really out of control. It was 3 years and of constant, like, basically being beaten up by this one kid. I fought back the whole time, but he was just bigger and faster and stronger than me. And I, kept trying to get one over on him, but, that was a defining aspect of my childhood for sure. And
let me interrupt you.
Please.
A lot of kids that age were bullied, just like you were. Mm-hmm. And then later on, so many of them tell stories about, running into the bully, at the mall or at the reunion or whatever. And either the bully apologizes or the bully has no memory of doing the bullying. Mm-hmm. Did you experience any of that?
I only saw him obliquely at a class reunion. He came in, it was the 10th high school reunion. So we were 28.
Yeah.
And he comes in and someone goes, "Oh my God, it's Bob Hack and he's got a mullet." and he really did have a mullet. And I guess I should skip ahead to what happened because his face was still fucked up from what I did to him the first day of high school.
Oh, okay. So go back now. All right. So I'm sorry I interrupted the story.
No, it's all right. No, you didn't. Not at all.
Okay. So this was a defining event, this bullying that you were going through.
Yeah. And the authorities did nothing.
Of course.
My mom reported it to the school. The school's like, boys are be boys. They're going to do what they're going to do. Not to mention, violence was everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. This is like right after the Vietnam War. There's the protests, but also internally, the school did, they paddled you for running in the hall.
Absolutely.
I remember getting paddled for walking on the wet floor when they told me not to walk on the wet floor. Stuff like that. So, getting whacked, that's what we called it. It was everywhere, like corporal punishment in the public schools.
Yeah. My dad was a principal. He used to swat people all the time. That's what we called it, swatting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is what we called it. And it was a whole industrial thing. They had, I remember the teachers all had their own paddles, sometimes with holes in them. Mm-hmm. And the lore was that the holes like made bigger welts or something.
Right. And we even had a rumor that Mrs. Page, she was the only Black female principal that her paddle had nails in the end. You don't want to run afoul of Mrs. Page.
No, I certainly would not. Yeah, so I got whacked, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 times. And so they're kind of like, whatever, they just thought it was funny and they didn't care. And it was formative because, again, like it's how society is constructed, right? Like most people don't bully anyone, but they laugh about it and they enjoy it when it's happening and they watch it and they stand by idly. Seriously, it's just like the way the world stands by and watches atrocities and does nothing. It's just, you learn everything about the way, like, politics are configured by the time you're in middle school or junior high.
You just may not realize it. Yeah.
No, exactly. Yeah. You don't really, you don't know how to handle it. I was also weird and different, right? Like, so I was the shortest kid in my class until like 9th grade. And so I was little and I was funny looking. Everyone was blonde. It was like, they're all German there in Southwestern Ohio. So it's children of the children of the damned or children of the corn, right?
Right.
With straw blonde hair. And I had dark brown hair. You can't tell that now, but like I was, so I was the funny looking European kid.
Right.
And my voice was a little different because French was my first language. And I think I was probably too bookish. And also I didn't know how to handle myself. My mom didn't raise me right. My mom was like, she didn't say like, oh, you need to fight back. Which is what you need to do. If someone fucks with you, and I told my son this, never start a fight ever, but finish it every fucking time. And like, and I'm like, I'll protect you, right? I'll run interference for you at the school. If they throw you out, I don't care. We'll fucking deal with it. But like, never let yourself be walked all over. And so like the summer between junior and senior high school, And also I was a smart kid. I mean, they had me doing, advanced placement math and stuff, starting in 7th grade. I mean, they ran out of math classes for me in high school. I had to go to University of Dayton and take math.
Which actually may account for the way you have excelled in art as well, because it's the same side of your brain that does math and that does art.
Yeah, yeah. And so that summer, I got a next door neighbor who came in, and he was awesome. He rode a motorcycle. He was from Kentucky, this older guy, middle-aged guy. He wasn't looking to fuck my mom or anything. He just took an interest in me. James Ballard. And he was like Jim Ballard. And he was like, listen, he's like, they're fucking up at school, I hear. I go, yeah. And he's like, I'm going to teach you how to fight. So he taught me how to fight. And he's like, how to guard and everything. And so the very first day of high school, Bob Hack walks up to me by my locker. I'm moving into my new locker and punches me in the gut as hard as he can. So I'm winded, of course. And he's just laughing and laughing and laughing. He made the mistake of turning his back on me to hold court. So I went crazy. It was 3 years of pent up rage. I grabbed him and I pounded him to a pulp. And I basically was using the locker door to slam on his head over and over and over and over and over. And anyway, ultimately the vice principal was called because like some teachers tried to stop me, and it was like, I'm not having it. I'm like full berserker mode. And what's good is that what applied to me applied to Bob. When Bob complained, and he was hospitalized for a week. He fractured his skull in several places. And people were like, I heard people say like behind me, like, that's fucking Rall. Rall's fucking crazy. He'll fuck you up.
That's right.
And I'm like thinking, that's right. You just keep thinking that.
I never had to find out. That's right.
Fuck around and find out. And I never had to do anything like that ever again. Not in high school. Never had to lay a hand on anyone. People they knew my reputation. When Bob would see me, he would run to like the other side of the school and go around to get to his classroom, even though I really didn't mean him any harm at that point. Right. But, he was terrified of me. And so that's how I dealt with it.
Well, I got to ask you about the aftermath. So, I mean, you probably both got suspended, I'm assuming.
Nothing
Really?
Happened. Nothing happened. No, like literally they called me in and they're like, so we know what happened. And we called down to Dwight L. Barnes. This is Fairmont West High School. They're like, we called Barnes. They told us about what's been going on between you two. Sounds like he had it coming. Don't let it happen again.
And the cops didn't get involved?
No.
Wow, Ted.
Nothing happened. He did. Wow. There is a coda to this. He did come and try to toilet paper my house.
Oh yeah, that's he came, real tough guy.
Yeah, he came 3 times in a row. The third time, me and all the neighbors were waiting, and we with hoses and we sprayed him down. And Bob left the keys to his very fancy black Jeep in his car. And my friend Scott, next door neighbor, and Scott goes, I have the keys. So they all ran away. The police came. He left his car. So we took his car and took it to a parking lot and went to town with my mom's sledgehammer and destroyed it and basically spray painted, fuck you all over it. Again, nothing happened. The cops came and they were like, so, this happened. And I'm like, I don't know anything about it. It's like, well, we hear there was an incident the other day. Is that so? And it was like, my mom knew all about it. She was like, so what happens when you leave your car like unattended? It's a dangerous neighborhood. You never know what might happen.
She's right.
Fuck around and find out. Yeah. So that was it. That was it for Bob. And, and high school was a completely different experience.
Well, I want to ask you about high school. So it's in high school that people who have an ability in art are really encouraged to move ahead quickly, right? In 7th grade, we're all sitting in the front of the school doing pencil drawings of the houses lined up across the street, and they all suck, and they're all displayed in the cafeteria. By high school, people who have an artistic ability are producing some cool stuff. Was that you?
It was, but it wasn't in the context of the school itself, because basically, like, my 7th grade teacher, who was very influential to me, Mr. Bradfield, he was English, Ohio history, and social studies. I remember him announcing to the class, one day Ted Rall is going to be a famous political cartoonist.
Wow.
And I remember friends of mine, like Jim Miles, who's a bank president now, a few years ago, he told me that, like, oh, I remember Mr. Bradfield saying that, and I couldn't believe he was right. And
wow.
But in high school, of course, I went to work for the school paper, and I did cartoons for them, but immediately did controversial cartoons making fun of the administration, and immediately got suspended. And from school as well as from the paper. But they let me come back to the paper, but I had to go to court to be allowed back into school, because I had done cartoons mocking the administration. So at that point, I was kind of like, on a lark, one day I was biking around town, and there's a local paper, the Kettering Oakwood Times, which, by the way, is where Irma Bombeck started her career.
You know, I went to her grave in cemetery right there in downtown Dayton less than a year ago. Yeah, she was a giant.
She was a colossus. And so she was from Kettering or Oakwood, I forget which, but she was from there. And she was in that paper I was at the time still. And anyway, I popped into the offices of the Kettering Oakwood Times. I was like, can I see the editor? And they were bemused, and I was 15 years old, and they let me come in. And I'm like, they hired me to draw cartoons for them in every issue. Wow. So including the ones that the school paper wouldn't run. So my mom is sitting in the backyard reading the KO Times one. And she's like, I didn't tell her I was going to be in the paper. I don't know why. I mean, you know, I just sort of suspected she might be mad or something. I was just kind of like, it was kind of like, you know how, like, you get to a certain point when you're a teenager, you're like, I want to do this I want to do this myself. Yeah. I want to do things. And I'd already, you know, shown some predispositions for busting out, you know, lighting out for the territories, like Tom Sawyer, like Huck Finn, right? Like, you know, I ran away a couple of times from home. And so, you know, I was like kind of like pretty independent. Anyway, the point is, my mom was puzzled. She's like, why didn't you tell me? And she wasn't really proud, but she was kind of like, you're sticking your head out, and like, you're going to be noticed, and that could cause problems. So, but I didn't really care. And they kept running me, and they were paying me $15 a cartoon, which seemed really great at the time. And and so I got really ambitious very quick. I was like, if I can be in the Kettering Oakwood Times, I can be in the Centerville Bellbrook Times. And I could. And I could be in the Moraine paper, and I could be in the Vandalia paper and the Huber Heights paper. So I basically contacted all these editors. And, you know, as soon as I got my learner's permit, 15 and a half years old, I was driving all over and going to hit up editors. I had 8 papers by the time I was 16 years old. So I was like self-syndicated. Wow. And also, I got into radio then around that time. So there was a local radio station called WAVI, which was the ultimate catnip for a young Ted Rall, because the format was new wave punk rock and political talk.
Oh my God.
So I listened to it voraciously. And they had all these contests where the DJ would say, oh, the New World Almanac is coming. I was such a geek. I was thrilled at reading the World Almanac.
I loved it. I bought it all the time.
Always bought it, looked at all the flags and all that stuff, the country stuff. And so I was obsessed with it. Anyway, so they're like, oh, so, you know, if you can call up, if you're the first caller to tell me who the Secretary of State was under Andrew Jackson, done. And so I called up, and I was like, which one do you want, the first one or the second one? And the guy was like, what? And he's like, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 15. I was 15 when I got that job. And he's like, oh, I want to meet you. I'll bring you your almanac in person. Thank God he wasn't like a pedophile.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, looking back on this story, it's kind of like, could be creepy. Wasn't. And so it was Mike Gallagher. I don't know if you know who that is.
Oh, I do know who that is.
Mike Gallagher
he went on to CBS, didn't he?
Yeah. He's a nationally syndicated radio host. And
in fact, I've been on the Mike Gallagher show.
Yeah.
And I went down to the
buddy from Dayton.
Wow. That's a very popular coast to coast show.
Yeah. No, he became conservative. He wasn't at all when I met him. But I think he pursued, I think it's fair to say he pursued the market as he thought it was developing in the 80s toward, the Rush Limbaugh conservative model. And so I think this was, I don't know what he truly, whatever, but that's not neither here nor there. But the point is that Mike was really good to me. And we became friends. And then one day they were trying out this guy on a Sunday, and Mike's like, "Will you tune in and listen to this old guy and see what you think of his show?" And it was just an atrocity, right? Like literally, I'll never forget it. He was like, I forget the guy's name, but like, "This is Sam Johnson, and come and fly with me in my big, beautiful balloon." And I was like, "Whoa." And so I don't want to fly in your fucking balloon, man. And so the dude, he bombed, right? It was so bad. He took calls. I finally got a caller, and she said, I don't really have anything to say to you. I just felt so bad listening to you beg for calls that I thought I would call in and help you out and say hi. Anyway, so the point is, after that, I get this call, and it's like, "It's Bud Kroll, the station manager. Would you be interested in being on the radio, trying out for it?" So I got this job. It was amazing, spinning discs after school and talking about politics. 15, 16 years old, $50 an hour, cash. The guy was a total madman.
Oh, yeah.
Like, sort of anchorman type station manager, like the movie Anchorman, like, shag carpeting on the floor, big lava lamp in the corner, the
WKRP
giant saltwater aquarium, embedded in the wall, paid out of a cash box in $50 bills. I was like, here you go, boy. And it's like, okay. And anyway, but I loved it. Yeah. And then I had to quit because I got a call from the Cincinnati Enquirer offering me an internship to write. And my newspaper advisor, even though she thought I was a pain in the ass, had referred me to it. They were like, who's your best writer? So I went down to Cincinnati, which is about a 45-mile drive from Dayton. And I had a car, so great car, 74 Nova.
Sweet.
Miss it.
I had a 72 Charger.
Oh, even
my first car.
That's better.
Loved it.
Much better. I still miss my Nova. It got shot at.
Mine too. Oh.
My girlfriend and I were cruising around the slums of Toledo, and we were howling at some pimp, and he shot at the back of our car.
Oh my God.
I left the hole in there. I was like, that's so cool. It's like, hey, what happened? It got shot? I'm like, yeah. It's literal. So, yeah, I mean, it was, I definitely, I was a great student, top of my class, perfect test scores, teacher's pet, taking math classes at University of Dayton because I was out of math classes in high school. I was living my best life. I was a workaholic.
Did you go to Cincinnati then?
No. So I did not. So I went to, so when I applied to colleges, I was like, I think ahead of my time. Now it's common to apply to 8 schools or more, and it's easy with the universal application. But or what's it called? Not the universal, but anyway, is that it?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
So anyway, you had to do it back then. You had to type them all individually, individual essays, typed all that stuff, some interviews. Anyway, I applied to 8 schools: Harvard, Georgetown, Yale, the U.S. Naval Academy. Then I had some backup schools: Northwestern, Case Western, Ohio State, University of Dayton, and Harvard let me in, but without any money. They said, your father's rich and he should pay. And I was like, well, I can't get him to pay. So they've changed that rule, fortunately. If it were today, I could have gone. Yale didn't let me in. Georgetown didn't let me in, which really was my first choice. I wanted to go there I wanted to, I was a political guy. I was a politics guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I was already a pretty successful political cartoonist and a writer. That's what I wanted to do. I won a Columbia Journalism Award. But I'll never know why. And I was like, I'm Catholic. I served Mass. I mean, it's a Catholic school. Like, crazy. What the hell? And it wasn't that competitive back then. So I don't know. I'll never know why. I always felt like that was some kind of miscarriage of justice. So Columbia Engineering School let me in. I had, which is not surprising, I had perfect SATs, and when I went into so it was a full scholarship for everything, plus stipend, plus a job as a TA. I learned later I was the first freshman math TA in the history of the university.
Oh my God.
So when I started fucking up later in college, I was like thinking, they were confused. They were like, you don't understand. Like, we talked about you as like possibly becoming like a mathematician who would work here at the university in like mathematical research. We don't understand what's going on with you. And so I did come in with a lot of promise. And so that was the best school I got into and gave me enough money. The other one I kind of thought about a lot was Northwestern. Northwestern had a program called Statistical Methods in the Social Sciences, which basically was a feeder. They only accepted 20 students a year, and it was a feeder into the Gallup poll and like the other political polling organizations. I thought, this is a great like mix for me, right? I mean, it's politics and it's statistics and math. And I was like, I would have loved it. I mean, I think I would have loved it. It was a great synthesis, but they didn't offer me a significant amount of money. I did get into the Naval Academy, which is a process.
You got into the Naval Academy?
Yeah. So, you have to, as you know,
you have to be recommended by your congressman. Yeah.
So injustice, right? Tony Hall was my Democratic congressman, and I'm active in politics. I volunteered for every campaign, local, state, and national, starting at the age of 9. Okay. I went door to door canvassing with my mom for McGovern in 1972. And Tony Hall was our Democratic Dayton.
Yeah, he was a big deal too. He became a very important figure in the Democratic Party in the House.
He did. But he loved jocks. So he only, his people interviewed people you go for the interviews to see who would get his 5 sponsorships for each academy. And he loved football players. And I was not that, I was in sports. I should also say, like, I had this other formative experience too. Like when I was in Boy Scouts. When I was 11, I joined Boy Scouts, and it was very important to me because I didn't have a father, and so I really felt like my mom and I both felt that I needed like some masculinity in my life, and camping in the outdoors. I can't say enough about it. It was fantastic. But when I was 12 and I was a scouting trip, there was a fucked up event where we were sleeping under the stars in late October. Overnight, there was a freak blizzard. We wake up under like a couple feet of snow.
Oh my
never
God.
happened now. And anyway, I had to be medevaced to Cincinnati. They thought I was going to die. My body temperature was down to the 80s. And I didn't talk. I couldn't talk for 6 months. Which was a great joy to my teachers. I had to like write stuff on a notepad. And so
my God.
I felt really weak. The doctors told me if I ever smoked, I would die. And exaggeration, but I never did smoke. And also they said that if if I would never be able to even run. I remember the doctor saying, "You'll never be able to run to the mailbox to mail a letter. You'll never be able to run." And I was like, "Fuck that guy." Like, I remember just thinking as a kid. So I went out for track, and I was, of course, god awful. I mean, I was lapped by the other kids, and but I just kept doing it because I wasn't really there to compete. I was there to beat my lungs into submission. I would be coughing up giant like balls of like capillary like gunk out of but I just kept doing it. And eventually I actually, won some races and
Wow.
set a school record in the 220 after 3 years. So the point is that was kind of like, I was really determined, right? So the Naval Academy, so that's what it kind of annoyed me. I was like, I'm not a football player, but I'm athletic. I was on the baseball team. I wrestled. Wasn't good at anything, but I did it. I thought it was important to compete and to just be, well-rounded that way. Anyway, so Tony Hall didn't give me he passed up on me. I was pissed. And so my mom was like, well, you can apply to the 2 U.S. senators, Howard Metzenbaum
and John Glenn.
Mm-hmm. And but both of them were from Northern Ohio. Mm-hmm. And Ohio's politics at the time, and probably still are, were very bifurcated between the northern part of the state, centered around Cleveland, and the southern part of the state, which Columbus is sort of considered southern, even though it's in the middle. But culturally, Columbus-Dayton, Appalachia, Cincinnati corridor is kind of like a different part. So there's not really a lot of political power in the South. Anyway, Metz and Glenn didn't give a shit about me. By the way, I worked on all of their campaigns, but they didn't care. So finally, Hail Mary pass. There's the Vice President of the United States, Walter Mondale. So he gets 5 himself. I got Fritz. So
unbelievable.
I didn't get to meet him, but they sent someone out to interview me, and then I was like, I couldn't believe that I got, and he's like, I still have the letter somewhere. It's like the vice president is, proud to blah, blah, blah. And
oh my God,
Walter Mondale agreed to do it, went to the mat for me. And so then I got accepted as a standby, like basically not in the initial triage, but then in the second. I was, of course, really tempted to go because my mom was obsessed with the fact that it's a free ride.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic education. And, it's 1980. And you have to remember, right? Like America's not at war. Mm-mm. And at that time, when there was a war, all the Navy did was sail around and look pretty.
Yes.
They're not getting like chopped up Hamburger Hill.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was like thinking, and I have, I feel like I have the sea in my blood because my mother's entire family, they're all from Brittany. They're all, they were all sailors.
Water people. Yep.
Water people. I love the water. I'm like, I'm like all about it. It's like, oh, you'll be at sea for 6 months to a year. I'm like,
okay.
I'm like, sign me up. Atomic submarine, done. Like no problem.
I read one time that submarines come up at least once every, was it 90 days or 180 days, only because people begin to go crazy otherwise. But it can stay under there for as long as the food lasts.
Yeah, that's amazing, right? It's so cool. And I was totally like, oh, that's for me. I mean, when COVID started and it was like, oh, we're all going to be staying at home and there'd be no socializing. I'm like, works for me. I wasn't upset. All the cartoonists, we were all calling each other, laughing, like, it's going to be rough on everyone else, but not for us. We're used to it. And it really wasn't rough for me at all. COVID was great. I mean, COVID has like facilitated my divorce, selling my house, like getting a cheap apartment in New York. Loved it. I mean, except for all the mass death.
Besides that.
Aside for that.
So what made you then decide on Columbia? Was there a certain appeal? Was it New York? What was it?
I had the most intense dream the night that kept delaying my decision. There was the deadline. The letter you had to respond with a postcard or a letter had to be postmarked by a certain day. And I kept kicking the can down the road. And then the night before the deadline, I had this dream of basically being court-martialed for insubordination in the military. And in the dream, I wasn't sure what I'd done, but basically it had involved telling some like officer to fuck off or something.
Of course.
And I remember just thinking, that dream is right. Like, I'm not ready for this. I'm not. I was, a punk rocker. I wore like, tight leather pants and Dead Kennedy's T-shirt, and I didn't give a shit about anyone. And I'd already, like, the way I'd gotten my mom to stop beating me was to threaten to kill her. And so I was like, no one could control me, including myself. And I didn't do drugs, I didn't drink, but I was fucking crazy. And like, and I remember just thinking, that could happen. I really could. That would never happen now. I'm very calm. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, if I had to do, physically I couldn't do it, but if I had to do boot camp now, breeze, easy peasy. Psychologically, no problem. You want to call me anything you want. Hit me as much as you want. I'm not going to react. I don't react, but that's not how I was. I remember just thinking, I can't do it. This isn't for me.
Right.
I just had this, realization, and my mom was very upset, but it was kind of like free ride at Columbia Engineering School. Doesn't suck. I remember my mom was a little racist about it though, because the admission letter was signed by someone with a Latina last name. And she's like, I don't know. I read that like this school is in Harlem, and like, this is a Hispanic woman, she said. And it's like, is it a good school? Are you sure?
Oh.
Like, I'm sure it's
it's in the Ivy League, Mom.
Yeah. UPenn, which is barely in the Ivy League.
That's right.
Or Brown.
That's right. Or Brown. Wow. Okay. So you get there in 1981.
Yep.
And is it math all the time, or are you're drawing cartoons still, I'm assuming?
I am still drawing cartoons. So, look, it was rough because the Cincinnati Enquirer offered me a staff job.
Wow, that's tough to pass up,
especially
at that age.
$150,000 a year in 1981.
Oh my God!
So I remember I called Mike Peters, was my mentor by this point, at the Dayton paper, and asked him what to do, and he goes, "Don't even fucking think about it." He's like, "Get your ass to college, go to New York, be a man, do man shit." Like meet weird new people, do weird, crazy things. You don't have anything to write or comment or draw about. You're a kid. Go to college.
Right.
He was right.
Good advice.
And so, although there were certainly times when, I regretted that decision, but so I show up, and it was kind of amazing, right? I took the bus to New York, the Greyhound from Dayton, because I was from a poor family. I never visited the campus before. I had only been to New York once before, when I was 10 years old. Actually, that's not true. I'd been twice. Once when I was 10, and I was a delegate to the 1980 Democratic National Convention.
There you go.
One of the youngest delegates ever. I couldn't vote, but I could be a delegate.
Oh my God, were you there for Ted Kennedy's keynote? One of the greatest speeches in modern political history.
The dream will never die.
That's exactly right.
Amazing. I still have, I literally just the other day, I was going through some of my old stuff, and I found my convention pass and like the buttons I had, and my little hat and all that stuff.
That's great.
But anyway, but I didn't really know New York, and so took the bus, but it was very ridiculous. Like, the bus all burst into, we saw the World Trade Center pop up on the horizon from the New Jersey Turnpike, and we all started singing New York, New York. I'd been sitting next to this girl who got on the bus. I sat next to her all the way from Dayton. She'd been there since Arizona.
Aye.
And she was 25 years old. Anyway, we get off the bus. We get out in front of the Port Authority bus terminal. 1981. It's sketchy.
It's
right?
bad. Yeah.
It's sketchy. And she goes, I want to give you your first kiss in New York City, and plants a fat wet one on me. And all the cops start going, woo! And I was just thinking, I think I'm going to like New York. And I get a cab, and I notice right away that the people are doing what I always did, which is watching the light the other direction to see when it's turning from yellow to red, and then revving up and going fast, which they don't do in Dayton, right? In Dayton, they just wait, moo cow, green, go. And so I remember thinking, oh, these are like my people. These are like fast people. And the cabbie took me to Columbia by way of Queens and tried to charge me like $40. We pull up in front of Columbia. The cops are processing a stabbing scene down the street while the dorm is checking us in. The cops are smoking at the crime scene. It's literally like a cartoon where the guy's got a knife sticking out of his back. And as upperclassman, he's like, helps me. I go, hey, dude, this guy took me via Queens. And he goes, he just goes, get the fuck out of here to the guy. He's like, oh, well, he owes me money. He's like, get the fuck out of here. So good. I was like, wow, New York.
Wow, yeah.
Immediately get upstairs into my dorm. And my roommate had already arrived and left. Plug in my clock radio, WINS. We give you 22 minutes. You give us 22 minutes.
We'll give you the world.
And I hear like, we're here at the scene of the building collapse in Lower Manhattan. It's like, I'm talking to a man trapped under an I-beam. Sir, how are you feeling? He's like, I'm sorry to hear that. Help is on the way. I'm like, what is this city? I love it so much. I meet my roommate. Turned out we were paired because we were both like self-admitted communists. He's like, I really want to go to CPUSA tomorrow on 23rd Street and join the Communist Party. I'm like, I'll go with you. So I just took it to it like a white on rice. I mean, the first week there's punk rock, there's like Blondie concert for $3 at the Peppermint Lounge. Mm-hmm. There's there's anti-Ed Koch Ronald Reagan rally where I'm photographed on like in Time magazine, ranker at in New York Labor Day, and I'm just like, I'm loving this. This is the best thing ever. So then school starts like a week later because we had freshman orientation. Also, Columbia was wild. They literally are like during orientation, they're like, so the cops don't come onto this campus. They're not allowed. And so you can use any drug you want in your room, heroin, cocaine, we don't care. Just make sure it's okay with your roommate. If your roommate says it's okay, then it's okay. If not, it's not okay. And
my God.
That's how it was. They were like, never go south of 110th Street or or between 110th or 96th Street. You will die, because it was like such a dangerous neighborhood.
Yeah, it was.
And that's where I live now.
Right. And it's great.
It's great.
It's great now. My first night in the dorm, the RA pulled everybody together and said straight out, white people don't go past 16th Street after dark.
Right.
Period. We still had buildings burned out from the 68 riots after Martin Luther King's murder. Mm-hmm. It was bad. And now places like Adams Morgan up 18th Street, Columbia Road, I can't afford to live up there.
Oh, it's nice there. Yeah,
it's nice.
There's So the ghosts of 1968 were present at Columbia too, because there was the notorious student strike, and like there were still ink stains in mathematics hall from like where the students had basically rolled a drum of printer's ink down the stairs back in 68 for some reason.
Oh my God.
In the bursar's office, in the registrar's office on the bulletin board, you could still see where people had spray painted strike across the bulletin board, and it was all faded there. And so like the ghosts were there. I mean, it was, not that long before. It was just, 11, 12 years. So it was a great experience. The thing that's interesting, Columbia has this core curriculum, and it's across all of their undergraduate schools. So there's Columbia College, School of General Studies, Barnard College, which is the all-women's school, and then there's the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, which I went to. I was an applied physics and nuclear engineering major, and when they and I was a TA, and they gave me an office in mathematics.
Oh my God.
Fucking amazing. So I was like, I was happy. I was happier than a pig in shit. But the great thing about the core curriculum is it's like basically dead white guys, right? So it's Tacitus and all that shit. And back then it was the pre-PC, pre-woke, stuff. No Zora Neale Hurston. She's great, but there was none of that. No Toni Morrison. It's Hemingway. It's that stuff. It's John Locke. And so because you're an engineering school, but there's the core curriculum. They try to get the core curriculum out of the way freshman and sophomore year. So you're barely doing any hardcore engineering classes until junior year. It's really, you're certainly, obviously you're in advanced physics, advanced chemistry, biochemistry, stuff like that. But you're also I took, French and, history and all that. I wanted a minor in history. I knew right away, I was trying to figure out a way if I could transfer over to liberal arts because here's the thing. I liked the math. I liked the science. I didn't like the people. The students, I would be like, hey, let's go, let's go downtown and see a band. And it's like the engineers students, they were all grinds, right? They were boring. They never went out. They just
introverts
Friday and Saturday nights. Yeah. Well, obviously their parents were like, good for them. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was going to Danceteria. I was on the VIP list. I was going to party with Drew Barrymore at Studio 54. I was a, very skinny, good-looking kid who had no problem, meeting girls. And it was like Studio 54 is a funny story. So Studio 54 was still going strong in 81.
Right. Yes.
And so all of us, we went down there and it was a huge scene, hundreds, maybe
the whole block. Yeah. They would block. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I remember, I don't like lines. Like it's like if I go to a restaurant and there's a line, I'm like, let's fucking go. So anyway, I go there the very first time, but I was with this hot girl. So I'm like, okay, I'm trying to get laid. I'll wait for this line. We get in relatively quickly and there's a guest book. And at that time, it was like maybe the second or third week of school. And I've been signing out my whole formal name on everything at school. So I just did the same thing. Frederick Theodore Rall III is my legal name, right? Ted is from Theodore. And so I just signed this thing in the guest book. Baird Jones, who was the impresario of Studio 54, must have thought I was some kind of like
royalty.
Preppy, yeah. Uh-huh. So he put me on the VIP list at Studio 54. So I started getting the invites, the special VIP invites in the mail at my dorm. And so, I became a regular and people would be like, they found out about it. And people would be like, can I go with you? And it's like, and sometimes it was rough because they were snotty at the door.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They'd be like, you skinny one in, you chubby one. No.
Yes.
And it was like, whoa. And then I was kind of me like, bye. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. And Andy Warhol's hanging out there with Elizabeth Taylor and Liza Minnelli and partying all night long. Now, I have to say, Studio 54 wasn't really that great. The music wasn't that great. And for me, it was always about the music. Sometimes they played The Clash, Rock the Casbah, and that's about as good as it got. Danceteria was my place. But I was a club kid. And I was also working like a beast. I immediately, a friend of mine he had a job as a longshoreman in what is today, where you and I had brunch the other day down at Brookfield Plaza. Yeah.
So there were docks down there. And so he's like, he knew I needed and wanted money. I had enough money to get, to certainly if I never went out to eat, I had the meal plan. But, I was acquiring tastes, right? I liked clubbing and, drinks were expensive and it's like cabs late at night. So I wanted cash. So I started driving a taxi and I got and he's like, there's this longshoreman job. And so I go down there and with him and the guy's like, his name was Sal. I had two bosses in a row named Sal. And he's like, all right, Teddy. It's like, there's one test here. And it's like, you got to carry a 200-pound bag 200 yards. And I'm like, all right. And so I knew it was going to fucking kill my body. I'm not a weightlifter. I do not spend much time, weight training. But I'm like, I know I can carry it. But the question is, how do I get it 200 yards? Long story short, I just figured, put it on my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. And then I was so fucking sore. I remember I went back then. All of the like rub and tug massage parlors, Korean massage parlors, were on 23rd Street, and they're like, "Happy ending." I'm like, "No, seriously, I just want a
real massage.
I need a real massage, as hard as you can give it to me." And they were kind of like, I was like, "I'll pay you as if," but I really need them. They're like, "Okay, weird," but anyway. So, yeah, so I was basically freshman year. I had the job as the TA, and I was working and dating, and
Well, it sounds like you're headed to something really great in college, but we know that there was a sidetrack. So let's leave it there, and we'll
do that.
Pick it up right at that point in the next installment.
Sounds great.
In the meantime, I want to thank our viewers again for signing up for premium. What should we call it? Premium.
Rumble Premium.
Rumble Premium. Thank you. Rumble Premium. We're going to have a lot more from Ted Rall the next time, so stay tuned.
Thanks, John. So it was so fun.
That was fun. I didn't know any of that stuff about you.
Let's see. Let me.